Hey teachers, our AP exams happen here, and today we are here. And the big question is, what are we supposed to do between here and here in order to get our students ready for that beast of an AP exam? And I got some advice for you. So let's talk about how long we should give toward review, what we need to review, and the methods for review. Now, in my best years as a teacher, I finished the curriculum by the end of March and the first week in April and devoted about 4 weeks to review. In my worst years, I didn't finish until about a week before the exam date. And I'd like to tell you that my worst years corresponded with my first few years of teaching, and my best years corresponded to my later years. But the truth is, it was a mixture. Some years I crushed it, and some years I was crushed by it. So the point is, I think all of us would like a full month before the exam to start reviewing, and probably, that's ideal. But at the minimum, aim for like 2 weeks, and you should be able to get it all done. And if 2 weeks seems impossible to cover everything they need to know, well, then let's talk about what you need to review. And broadly speaking, whether you're teaching one of the AP Histories or AP Government, there are only two broad categories of review: content and skill. Now, obviously, content is incredibly important, and that's the backbone of everything else. They need to know what the Columbian Exchange was. They need to know what the Industrial Revolution was. They need to know the function of Congress, and on and on and on. In fact, I often get bewildered students in my comments weeping and gnashing their teeth about how they can't figure out how to answer stimulus-based multiple choice questions or write SAQs or SCOTUS comparison questions or whatever. And my first question to them is always, how well do you know the content? Because the truth is, a solid knowledge of vocabulary and processes and developments can often solve a lot of those problems. And I know that sounds overwhelming for a lot of us teachers, but don't worry, I've got a plan for content review, and I'm going to tell you about it shortly. But secondly, we need to review the skills of the course with them. They need to know how to support an argument with evidence. They need to know how to think chronologically. They need to know how to interpret documents, write a coherent essay, etc. And so those two categories should frame whatever time we have to devote to review. Okay, that's great, Heimler, but tell me how. Tell me how! Okay, you got it, boo. Now, there are as many methods for review as there are teachers, so the following is just, my advice. Adopt and modify as necessary. Or if this doesn't make sense to you, print out a transcript of this video, burn it, and dance upon its ashes. You do you, boo. So for content review, my advice is to transfer that responsibility entirely to the students. I've created 30-day content review guides linked in the description for APUSH, AP World, AP Euro, and AP Government. These are free and they are linked to all my videos for the whole curriculum. Give these to your students and maybe figure out a way to keep them accountable for completing them, because there's no way you can cover an entire content of curriculum even in a month, so let them do it. And as a side note, if you want to help them review on an even tighter timeline, you can always point them towards my review packs for those subjects, which have whole unit review videos along with note guides and practice questions. But regardless, the guides are free, so check those out. Okay, so if the students are going to be responsible for the content, what are you going to review with them in class? Skills, baby! Skills for days. And let's break that down into a few specifics. First, review the basic skills one at a time. And I'll go through this quickly, but here's a playlist that includes videos on how I would teach all of them. Start with the interpretation of documents. Seriously, buttloads of documents every day. For history courses, just grab documents from old DBQs on AP Classroom, and for government, just use the foundational documents. Then go over sourcing and using documents and arguments. Get them writing theses, contextualization paragraphs, evidence beyond the documents. Give them lots of practice multiple choice questions, etc., etc. Just focus on one skill at a time until they have it. Second, set up a writing intensive workshop in your classroom. For a good week or two, they need to be doing nothing but writing and peer reviewing that writing. I learned this from my friend and masterful AP World teacher, Eileen Brannick. Credit where credit is due. And here's how I think you should structure this for maximum impact. First, go over and detail all the various scoring rubrics. Make sure they are clear on exactly how they are going to be assessed on their writing. This is like learning the rules of soccer before actually going out onto the field. If you don't learn the rules, you might get lucky and score once or twice, but you have a much better chance of winning if you know the rules and play accordingly. Second, have them score exemplars provided by the College Board. Once they know the rules, it's good for them to, in essence, watch other people play and assess their performance. If you don't know where to find these, they are linked in the description for each course. But try to use the exemplars from the last few years, since the older ones might not reflect the same rubrics and question structures. Also, I have a free activity for my teacher resource pack linked below that will guide you in recreating the National AP reading with your students, and it's highly recommended. Third, they need to start writing themselves and reviewing each other's work. Keep this manageable for yourself. Have them write answers to SAQs for the history courses or the first 3 FRQs for government, then they score each other and then share out so the whole class can decide whether a point is awarded. And that can give you a great opportunity to have a discussion on why something gets the point or why it doesn't. And look, if you're sweating right now because you're like, but I'm not sure if I can say with confidence whether something gets the point or not, especially in front of a bunch of stressed, judgmental teenagers. Well, here's my advice. If you've ever been to the national reading, you will know that it's a pretty frequent occurrence that we tap the people next to us and ask, do you think this earns the point? So you're in good company. If you really don't know, then maybe you can ask a colleague in your department, or you can take it home and figure that one out overnight. But every time I encountered something that I wasn't sure would get the point, it actually turned into a great occasion for talking about why it was difficult to assess and what would push it into absolute clarity. So the point is, you don't have to know it all, just, breathe easy. And finally, I would advise you to set aside some time for full practice exams. No matter how well they know the skills and the content, there is no substitute for sitting in one place for hours and taking the exam. They need at least one practice exam with feedback from you, and if possible, 2. And you probably don't have enough class time for this, so I know a lot of teachers schedule mock exams like after school or on Saturdays. And look, I know this is a lot, so if you still have questions, be sure to check out this playlist for some individual videos on much of what I talked about in summary here. And make sure you subscribe here because you won't want to miss the rest of the videos that I'll be publishing this exam season to help you and your students thrive in the next few weeks. And I'll catch you on the flip-flop. HEIMLER out.